Hey everybody, welcome to an MD breaking news story. Joining us today is Kit Sanderson of MD Latino. And Kit is here to explain to us what's going on with this IFBB Civil War. As you know, back in September at the Olympia, there was a big divide. This is where the IFBB divided into two major factions. Jim Manion is in charge of IFBB Pro League, the organization that still runs the Arnold Classic Ohio, the Olympia, the New York Pro, and the NPC in the United States affiliated with them. And now they have the IFBB Olympia Qualification Series all over the world for amateur athletes to turn professional. And the other side is Rafael Santoja with his IFBB Elite Pro and his IFBB Amateur. So the very first thing, I guess, to discuss is the fact that the IFBB Pro League, in just a very brief time since this happened, it's actually led to an enormous expansion. We've all seen the schedule. It's just loaded with new shows. It's crazy. So, I mean, how many more shows do you think we have now than in previous years?
Well, I mean, first off, thanks for having me on the Ron Line Report.
Well, it's breaking news.
It's always great working with you, Ron. I mean, you do incredible things over there at MD, especially online, and you talk to a lot of great stories with a lot of well-known people. So it's always an honor and privilege to, collaborate with you, especially on the international scene. Yeah, definitely. The calendar keeps expanding. Since they launched it in less than 65 days ago, it's doubled.
Wow.
And the reason why it keeps doubling is people want to get involved. People are tired and fed up, okay? And, it's like Roberto Clemente said, if you have a chance to make a difference in this world and you don't do anything, you're just wasting your time. So people are getting involved. And within the end of Q1 this year, you'll see that calendar double again. How does this involve MD and MD Latino? Well, we know that MD is a global brand and does a lot of contest coverage in Europe. MD Latino handles, all of Latin America. And if you take a good look at that calendar, between 25 and 35% of those shows are in Latin America or Spanish or Portuguese-speaking countries.
Wow.
So definitely, we both know that Latin America is big in bodybuilding and fitness, okay? And these have been almost stagnant markets under the IFBB International. What brands want to see internationally now is more commercial interest, bigger draws of spectators. They want to see it online, and they want to see it in a more professional manner. So that's why you say just a calendar that's expanding so quickly.
So the one thing that was when this break between the two factions occurred, one of the first things we all thought was, this is great for the athletes because now they have options. And before they didn't really. It was they had to be in this organization and that was it. But now it's they have a choice. They can go to one organization if they find it's more attractive or they think they're going to have more opportunities in it.
Like boxing.
The one major difference that I think I see is that the Manion side, IFBB Pro League, and the pros always have to stick to one organization. That's a given. But in their amateur league, the Olympia Qualification Series, they're welcoming athletes from all federations across the board, and they've
all leagues, all associations, which includes WBFF, Musclemania, NABA, WABA, NPC, IFBB Amateur. Okay, it's opening a lot of doors for the athletes, but also the NPC, or what we call the association, an IFBB Pro League qualifying series internationally. So it's like you're making that contrast. On the Santoja side, the athletes are getting stigma. There's a lot of stigma. They're getting threatened. If they compete or associate themselves with any other event that's not officially sanctioned by the IFBB Amateur, they get eliminated, suspended, fined. They're subjected to anti-doping tests. So they're basically using dictatorship, the old way of thinking, iron fist, right? To kind of chokehold the athletes into forcing them into the IFBB Elite Pro or the amateurs, instead of kind of letting the sport grow and letting the athletes compete back and forth. Just like boxing, there's 3 different titles you can get.
Yeah.
Which I think in the long run is going to upset a lot of sponsors. It's already upset the media. I don't know any North American media outlet that is going to support Rafael Santoja. And it's like you said, we all want to go with a league that's going to be expanding internationally and creating more opportunity, business in a business sense hemisphere than dictatorship.
Yeah. So how do they even, I don't understand how they can expect to, draw or keep a lot of their athletes if they're threatening them and saying we're going to suspend you, we're going to subject you to dope testing. I would think that if they have options now, that they would want to make it as attractive as possible and not try to scare these people or intimidate them. Because if I was an athlete in one of these countries and I had a choice, and one side saying it's okay, you can compete wherever you want, we welcome you, and another side is saying if you compete with anyone else, we're going to screw you over. We're going to punish you. Why would they? How would they even possibly sell that to the athlete? I don't get it.
Well, there's three things here. Okay. One, they're trying to give away a lot of cash, but this is something that could have been executed years ago, and the IFBB Amateur chose not to. Now they're trying to lure people within cash. And I'm going to tell you, they're going to try and do it with the Olympic Committee, and it's not going to work, because the long term, we know that a lot of these events, like the Arnold Classic Brazil, have been a complete disaster in the pro league section. I mean, they can't even finance the winnings, the prize money.
Wow.
And they only have one pro category, and there's only like 5 of them. It's horrible.
Yeah.
These types of tactics may have worked, like threatening the athletes, maybe 10 years ago. But we're living in an age of digital media, international publications in different languages, and, for example, social media applications like Facebook and WhatsApp, where people can just literally call each other or send information or messages back and forth instantaneously, where they don't have to ask their local federation what they should be told. They can outsource kind of other information, for example, like muscular development, flex, NPC News Online, the real deal, Generation Iron. I mean, I'm going to mention our competitors because, listen, at the end of the day, we all have a job to do.
Yeah.
Cover the story of bodybuilding. I think that the Elite Pro League is going to attract a different type of athlete, right? You're talking about two types of athletes, all right? The original athlete that has that dream and aspires to step on a pro stage, that's the type of athlete that these pro qualification series events are going to attract. The type of athlete that doesn't quite believe in their own dream, it would take the easy route. And that's okay, because we're going to welcome them anyway, right? You can get your elite card and then come to later to compete for your pro card.
Yeah.
We won't recognize you as a pro athlete, but we'll still accept you to try and compete for your IFBB Pro card.
Yeah.
And the last time I checked, there hasn't been any IFBB pros that have traded their card in for an Elite Pro card. So, I mean, that kind of tells you something. And if you look on that calendar in the computer screen there, the amount of pro shows now are expanding very quickly in places like Latin America, Europe, Asia, Australia. We're not just talking about a handful of shows now. And the idea is that more of these athletes can turn pro, and they can compete in the United States if they want to, or they can compete internationally. So issues like visas or currency exchange or distances or maybe cultural advantages, those no longer apply. It's an even playing field. We've taken out the Mickey Mouse rules that Santoja kept on implementing for so many years ago.
Yeah.
And now Jim Mannion is offering, the IFBB Pro League is offering pro shows and pro qualifiers all over the world in Latin America.
I mean, it seems like, from what I've heard, I think you would even mention this to me, was that some of these athletes, especially in Latin America, were being told by the Santoja side that they were better off sticking with him because they're never going to do that well. Traditionally, they've never done well in the IFBB Pro League anyway.
Which, that's a crock of shit.
Right. I mean, Gustavo Badell, Victor Martinez, you can go on and on.
It's ludicrous, this statement. It was made by Juan Paredes. He's the IFBB Amateur South American Confederation president. And I don't know where he got the statistic, but you and I both know, we cover the U.S. shows. Take the Tampa Bay Pro Show. I mean, it's loaded with new IFBB Pro Latinos. Tim Gardner has done a spectacular job with the international market. And so instead of inspiring these kids to do better, it's kind of like a third world socialist dictatorship type of attitude, bureaucratic attitude to say, we're just going to put you in a different class and make it easy for you. And, listen, my respects for anybody who takes their card from any league or federation. Okay, it's an accomplishment, but let's not lie and tell people that achieving that dream of stepping on a IFBB Pro stage is impossible. Never try and take that dream away from somebody.
Right. So I could see that. That's one kind of sly thing to do, but the fact that they seem to be using these threatening tactics where they're going to be punished severely if they dare to associate or compete with another organization, it seems like the exact opposite. Why are you laughing, Kid?
No, because it is. It is. I mean,
if I'm an athlete and they're telling, I have two choices, and one choice says, you're cool, you can compete wherever, we'll always welcome you in our amateur organization, you can turn pro with us, and it's fine. And the other one's saying, if you even dare to compete in some other organization or associate with them, guest pose in their shows, you're going to be fined, you're going to be suspended, you're going to be dope tested. I'd be like, okay, see ya. There's no attraction. I just don't get how they can even expect to have athletes.
I think. Listen, I don't know how they're going to do the dope testing. Nobody's going to pass it, right. So they're going to cheat on it. So that's against the ethics of the whole Olympia committee of all or sanctioning, whatever you want to call it. But I can say in the past where a lot of very talented athletes, international athletes, especially from Latin America, have been dope tested. They get 3-year suspensions.
Wow.
It's ridiculous. I mean,
3 years.
3 years.
That's
it's like
if
you're trying to bodybuilding, congratulations, you just did it. All to get the Olympic money. I don't know. This is what I tell international judges and athletes. All those NPC and IFBB Pro judges, they get their money by selling inscriptions, or what do you call it in the United States? Enrollments?
Memberships, enrollments, media sponsorship,
hotel and accommodations, true business people. There's nobody waiting for government money.
Right.
And we can safely say that any of those judges on the NPC or IFBB Pro League roster, they do pretty well.
Yeah.
They do pretty well for themselves, okay, to put it mildly. And more respect to them. They're doing a great job. So the idea of depending on the government for that Olympic money, it's a wishy-washy type of circumstances, because you can't 100% guarantee that money will be adequately distributed to other judges, to the athletes. I mean, who's monitoring this?
Good question.
Good
question.
Yeah, no, who's really, and so I don't want to get into a fist fight and pick on them anymore. But going back to Juan Paredes' comment about that 3% is, I'm going to put more towards 35% are doing well in the IFBB Pro League.
Right.
Okay, and a lot of those people appear on the cover or inside of my magazine. Okay, and MD's magazine. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving forward, February 16th to 18th is a very, very crucial event for the sport of bodybuilding and fitness in Latin America. It is the Expo Fitness Colombia, loaded with the Mr. Olympia Amateur, which is a pro card qualifier where the overall winner and the runner-up overall get pro cards. If the categories are super stacked, they may give it to the first 3 in the overalls, which is good because you still got to get into the overall.
Yeah.
We're expecting over 600 athletes. Over 350 athletes have already enrolled online, which is unheard of in an international event. So we're guessing around 600 athletes. There's also a IFBB Pro show. So going back to Juan's, comment is the IFBB Pro League is going to have events in Latin America, Europe, all over the world. And Shuru, we all know Shuru, the Shuru Classic in India. Yeah. He found this event in Colombia so inspiring that he is holding the Shuru IFBB Pro Classic in the same weekend as Olympia Amateur and Expo Fitness, which will be on a Sunday.
Yeah.
That is men's physique and women's bikini the first year. They're going to be adding classic physique in 212 next year. Okay.
Yep.
It was kind of added last second, so they're kind of worried about having enough time to get enough athletes. But I'm going to go over the roster here of athletes.
Okay.
Give me a second here. So far, there are between 8 and 9 athletes signed up in the men's physique. And some of them you may have heard of. Andre Ferguson.
Yep, I'm familiar with him.
Logan Franklin.
Yep, know the name.
Yeah, I remember when he won nationals. I remember a few years ago. He's a good athlete out of Texas. Yep. Giovanni Paula from Miami. He's a Colombian-Cuban out of here. He's been in Olympia before.
Okay.
There's a new kid on the block, Fernando Chala, one of Colombia's best men's physique. He's going to make his pro debut there. Gaston Bitterman, Raymond Edmonds, he's got a good following. So that's on the men's side. And there's some pretty well-known names on the women's bikini side. Romina Basualdo, she took 3rd place at the Olympia this year.
Oh, yeah.
Elisa Piccini, she's an Olympian athlete. She just took the runner-up at the Ferrigno Legacy.
Yeah.
Jessica Renee, she does very well in the IFBB Pro League. Kim Gutierrez, many people have not heard of her, but she's doing very well in the IFBB Pro League right now. And Ellie Fernandez, there's another girl who qualified for the Olympia last year, was in the Olympia. So there's a few more in there. But we're looking at, a decent lineup is the first year, and more people are coming in every day for this lineup and the pro side. So by the end of the day, we'll probably have between 15 and 20 athletes in each category.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, I want to back up because there was something we discussed prior to this about, this is a business at the end of the day. It's sponsor driven, and sponsors need to be feel safe and secure that they're going to get their money's worth out of sponsoring these shows and athletes and so forth. So out of the two organizations, it would seem to me the one that doesn't sanction the athletes and punish them, the IFBB Pro League and the Olympia Qualification Series, would be more attractive and possibly better for business overall. Which we're all in this for. It's a business. We're all in this together, really trying to make money for the promoters, the athletes who want to make money. Everybody needs to make a dollar. So from that point of view, where do you see this divide, and which side is better for business?
Okay, well, Ron, you and I are both North Americans, so we're going to think we're red-blooded capitalists. Okay, so we're going to look at this as sports marketing, sports entertainment, and like a business, like any other sport. Okay, you got to sell tickets, you got to sell sponsorship. Yeah. If you ain't filling Yankee Stadium, you're fired. That's simple. Yeah. It's the Yankees, all right? On the international side, it had been ran more as a government entity, like federations, okay? And this is a very, very old school way of running things in attempts to get Olympic Committee recognition, which opens up big government budgets for a lot of these countries and federations, which I sympathize with and understand. But that dependency on government money is a very dangerous thing, because the minute that well runs out, you're going to have to look for alternative revenue sources. And the IFBB, okay, in the United States, in the NPC, does extremely well without any government support. Right. So I have been studying the IFBB International, and it's always short on money. Their budgets, this treasury, everything. There's never any people in the crowd, and there's some exceptions. Mexico has a very solid organization. DR used to have a solid organization about 2 years ago. But knowing how to market yourself as an athlete or a judge or promoter is more important than receiving a handout. If you get a handout, hallelujah, that's great. But I think you empower yourself when you're able to have a marketing team with you. And it's a startup business. Let's face it, every single one of these territories is a startup business. Yeah. I think Tamara Guiundi and John Lindsay have over 300 shows on the West Coast, just Nevada and California.
Not 300 shows, but they have a lot of shows.
It's insane. I know here in Florida, we got about 100. Here
Yeah,
in Florida,
NPC in Florida, they do have probably 100 events a year.
it's insane. So, 70% of the shows do really well. They're about 30% of them, so. So you're batting 700. You're in the Hall of Fame. You're making money. So, again, I'm not against the idea of having government handouts, but there's going to be a cost to it. And I think suspending or threatening the athletes is kind of a low class or a really low thing to do to try and salvage whatever that organization perceives itself holding on to the market, because at the end of the day, there really is enough room for two sports entities, two different leagues, two different federations. If anybody knows about Brazilian bodybuilding, the NABA is still fairly strong there. There's still a NABA league. It still has a lot of world championships. And now with Tamaragundi going into Brazil in Olympic amateur, there's going to be between 4 and 5 events in Brazil this year via Jim Mannion.
Yeah.
They're going to just annihilate the IFBB Brazil in amateur.
Wow.
Because they're allowing all those other competitors who are tired of getting threatened in the Mickey Mouse games.
Yeah.
And they're going to go right into these muscle contests in the Olympic amateur. And I'm telling you right now, because I talk to a lot of these athletes, I've got intel and boots on the ground in a lot of these territories.
Yeah.
They're little bit by little bit. It's like holding on to sand in an iron fist. It's just going to drip out until you have nothing.
Wow.
So.
Well, I know you don't have a crystal ball, Kit, but you do have a good handle on what's going on and the dynamics of these different countries and so forth. What do you potentially see happening over the next year or two as this unfolds and athletes take sides and promoters take sides? What do you possibly see happening? Which side do you see prevailing, if I can use that word?
Okay, great question. I was a big IFBB amateur promoter for the last 7 years. We were live streaming events. We're doing contest coverage, just like how you guys do in the States, huh?
Yeah.
And doing things that no other publication had done before in Latin America. There were certain federations and certain judges that appreciated the media value, but there was a big segment that just was like walking on eggshells. They didn't understand the value. If you tried to explain it to them, they wouldn't care. That type of attitude in the long run is going to stigmatize the other side, okay? It's going to be a war. My predictions, I think Arnold is going to drop the Arnold Brazil. I think he's going to drop it. I think these events in Brazil are going to change the landscape. I think the events in Mexico are going to change the landscape. I think the IFBB Amateur will continue and be considered another NABA class. Listen, the world needs the IFBB Amateur. It is a league. It does function. It does its purpose. But for these judges to come in and say that they're their original league and that the IFBB Pro League is no longer valid, and to threaten the athletes and say that you cannot follow your dreams, you can't compete with us. Well, Ron, what would you do? If you were an athlete, top caliber amateur athlete for the last 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years.
Yeah.
You've won your titles in your country, perhaps your continent, or been runner-up.
Yeah.
What would you do? Would you stick with that league?
No.
Or would you try something new?
I'd get the hell away from them if I had that option the minute it presented itself. I'd jump on the new organization. It's not really the new organization. They've been around just as long. But, yeah, I mean, I don't see it. I can't see it succeeding in the long run if these tactics and this bullying and this punitive type of attitude continues, because, when you have options, you're going to choose the more attractive option. And you can only scare people and threaten them so long before they turn their back on you, if they have that choice.
By the way, Ron, the IFBB Amateur has tried to put an event in every country, every weekend of every event that the Pro Qualifying Series is. And I'm sure you heard about the Eric Weeder and taking the Weeder estate away from Rafael Santoja.
Yeah.
So, there was a Ben Weeder Cup. I think they're calling it Mr. Universe now. In the same weekend is the Mr. Olympia Amateur in Medellin in Bogota. So this is the first big battle of the season, man. Rome versus Carthage. I think Rome is going to prevail in the long run. It's going to be a bloody war. But I think in the long run, people don't want to be bullied. Sponsors don't want to be bullied. The media doesn't want to be bullied. And I think the media as a whole, we have made our decision. And that sends a strong statement internationally because this is what people follow.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's going to be interesting to watch, but I think I'm pretty confident of the outcome, how it's going to go, as I think you are too.
Yeah. I mean, and again, don't get me wrong. IFBB International has done a lot of great things, okay? It's just its conduct within the last, well, since Vegas, it's just been kind of rogue, and it's just unacceptable. Listen, these guys, they think they're invincible. And until now, we haven't had another choice. It's always been Coca-Cola. Well, now we got Pepsi, right?
Yeah.
Who wants Pepsi?
I actually like Pepsi better. So.
Yeah. Well, hey, don't say that. You could get,
Like Diet Pepsi better than Diet Coke for sure. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's an option that these young people will have, and I think that the IFBB Amateur will continue in work and serve its purpose. But I think in the long run, the majority of athletes will aspire to have their IFBB Pro card, and they'll want to compete in IFBB Pro shows. And I think the market share will finally grow, which is good for everybody, really, if you think about it, even if you're IFBB Amateur promoter, because if the market in itself is understanding bodybuilding and fitness culture better, there's more competitors, there's more social media followers, right?
Yeah.
The market share is growing. Hey, you're going to have Coke and Pepsi in the same market. Great. Now you have a choice when you go order your meal, right?
Yeah. You'll have more people drinking soda overall. It's fine. It's good.
That's right.
Okay. Well, Kit, thank you very much for informing us as to what's going on, because I know a lot of the American fans and athletes, they're sort of oblivious to all this because, we're in America, we tend to be very insulated and not worry too much about anything beyond our own borders for, it's just the way we are, unfortunately. But this does affect us all in the long run because it's one sport, it's one industry. You can't just consider yourself of one nationality or North American anymore. It's a global industry and a global sport.
Bodybuilding is global. It's always been global. Let's face it. And maybe I think our Congress should get in the gym and lift weights together versus fight each other in the sea. But really, you're going to start seeing it this year in a lot of the shows, a lot of the international element competing in a lot of these new categories.
Yeah.
You're going to see people are like, who the hell is that guy? Where did he come from? And not just from Latin America, but from Europe, especially Eastern Europe. You're going to start. We saw that this year, right?
Sure.
We saw that, especially in the 212 category, women's figure. So, and we're going to start seeing a lot more in classic physique and men's open and 212. So, and certainly bikini. We know there's a lot of cute Latina chicks out there.
Oh yes. Okay. Well, like I said, this is a developing story. As the season goes on, it's going to get more and more interesting, and we'll be following along. And I'd like to get an update from you further on down the season and your take on how it's all coming along. So,
well, join us this February 16th to 18th at mdlatino.com and musculardevelopment.com as we broadcast the Sharu Classic, the first IFBB Pro show in Colombia, Medellin, Colombia. Not a bad place to be hanging out, right, Ron?
Well, I'm not going. The wife would not be cool with that, no.
Yeah, but even in Spain, we got Emilio with his Pro League. They launched the IFBB Pro League in Emilio Martinez in Spain now.
Wow.
So we got 3 pro shows coming up in Spain. Isn't that where Rafael Santoja is from?
That's pretty bold of them to do it right in his backyard, yeah.
Right in his backyard, so.
Cool,
well,
man.
Thank you very much, Ron. I really appreciate the opportunity.
You're welcome. All right, for breaking news, it's been Ron Harris with the one and only Kit Sanderson.
Ciao.